Nail by Ian Jones and Andy Edwards. Episode 5. Beca. Friday, March the 27th, 1942. It's a big day for Nail. He's taken the letter to Bobi Bach's widow in Swansea. It's been 26 years since Bobi wrote it, and Nail is hoping that giving Rebecca the letter will ease his guilt about what happened that fateful day in Mametz Woods. I hardly slept last night. You were tossing and turning like the Caldy Island ferry, Margaret said. We went to Caldy when we were in Tenby on honeymoon last summer. We were both sick into the sea on the way back. Merv laughed when I told him. Bloody landlubbers, he said. I was still in a state getting a train to Swansea this morning. Good luck, Cariad, Maggie said when I left the house. I'll see you about 2 o'clock. She'd offered to come with me, fair play. But no, Bach, I said. Better off for my own. Wish I'd said yes now. Too late to worry about it now, though. Rebecca's house in Sketty, not far from the Vivian pub. Bit of a trek from the station. Not far off an hour, I reckon. All uphill too until the uplands. I took a detour past the vetch field. My Uncle Gareth was a big fan of the swans. Rebecca was standing in the door waiting. Nail, she said warmly. Come in, man, come in. Don't worry about your shoes. The three of us sat around her kitchen table with a cup of tea. God, Robert looks like Bobi Bach. Apart from his arm where the polio got him. Why haven't you come before, she said when I arrived. I thought she was talking about bringing the letter, but she just meant to visit, to come and say hello. I know, I said. I should have, but, well, you know. She nodded her head. God, you've changed, Hobart, she said. I should hope so, I say. You haven't seen me in nearly 30 years. And we laugh. It's small talk for a bit as we drink our tea. Do you remember her? Oh, what happened to him? Where are they living now then? You know, the sort of thing. Eventually, it was Robert who brought it up. Have you brought the letter? He asked. Oh, don't be rude, Robbie, she said. Oh, don't worry, I say. It's not rude. You're right, Robert. That's why I came. Tell me what happened, Hobart, Beca says. All of it. I want to know every detail. Robert stares at me across the table. I just want to see the letter, he says impatiently. Stop it, Robbie, Beca scolds. This isn't about what you want. If you don't like it, you can go in the sitting room, read your book or something. Robert took a swig of tea, put his elbows on the table and stared straight at me. I recounted the story that I'd told Maggie on the train, and not quite so graphic as I was with her. I don't think it will be helpful for Rebecca. She's motionless as I tell her about the 2 young men who thought they were going on an adventure. The long march through France and the horrors of the Somme and Mametz. When I reach the point where we're in the crater with Griffey, I stall. I can't tell her the truth. I can't tell her it was my fault that Bobi died. I lie to her. I tell her we lifted Griffey out of the crater and Bobi was shot as we climbed out after him. She starts to sob. I stand up and hold her in my arms. I'm crying as hard as she is. Oh, Nail, she cries. Poor Bobi, poor Bobi. Robert just sits motionless and stares at me. Does he know I'm lying? I think to myself. I let Rebecca go and sit back down. What happened to you, Neil? Tell me what happened to you. Are you sure you want me to carry on, I ask. Yes, please. Please tell me everything, she sobs. I explained to her how I'd carried Griffey over my shoulders, back out of the woods into the ditch, and about finding the bullets which riddled his head and back as I dropped him on the ground. Those bullets were meant for you, mister, says Robert. Just like the ones that killed my father. Shut up, Robbie, Becca shouts. Shut up, shut up. She's shaking with anger. Get out of this house. Don't ever come back for all I care. You're not half the man your father was. Now get out. She's screaming, crying and scarlet with anger. Robert scrapes his chair back across the tiled floor with the back of his knees, picks up his cardigan from behind it and slams the back door as he leaves. Oh, I'm sorry, Hobart, Becca sobs again. He's not right, you know. He doesn't understand things. It's hard for him. Never met his father. Angry all the time he is between Bobby and the polio. Don't apologise, please, Becca, I say. I can understand what it must be like for him. I'll do another tea, she says, and you can tell me the rest. As she waits for the kettle, she talks a little about how she met Bobby and the happy times they had had together before the war. I knew most of it, to be honest. Bobby never stopped talking about her. Married in 1915 we were, Hobart, she says. English Congregational Chapel in Aberystwyth. Lovely little cottage we had. Couldn't bear it after he didn't come back from the war, so we moved here. I needed to be close to the hospital anyway when Robbie was ill. She pours the water into the teapot. You'd think we'd learn, wouldn't you? She says. But I stood here, watched the bombing last year. It felt like we've learned nothing. Makes me shiver when I see those anti-aircraft guns in Singleton. And you know what the problem is, don't you? I shake my head. Well, I'm sorry to have to tell you, Hobart. It's men. Men and their stupid greed. She puts my cup and saucer on the table. Sorry, she says. I smile. She's right. What happened to you after you found out the sergeant was dead, Hobart? You must have been in a terrible state. Yeah, I was a mess, Becca. Just lay there for ages with him. Couldn't get me off him. I couldn't accept that they'd both gone, you know. Just like that. 1 minute you're breathing the same air, the next they're gone. Felt guilty for years. Still do, I suppose. Why did I survive? Maybe it would have been better if... And Becca interrupts me. Enough of that, she says firmly. You shouldn't feel guilty. It wasn't your fault. That's what Maggie said yesterday, I reply. Oh, who's Maggie? Beggar asks with wide eyes. I smile. My wife, I say. Second wife. Got married last year. First wife, Chantel, died in childbirth with our second child. Baby died as well. Oh, that's awful, she says. But you've got one child, though. Aye, a daughter, Marianne. She's a teacher in Ponterw. I'm a grandfather as well. 2-year-old granddaughter named after my first wife. Oh, I don't think I'll be a grandmother anytime soon with that useless great lummox. Read, that's all he wants to do. Oh, why didn't Maggie come over with you, she says. Oh, she's in her auntie's in Gowerton, I say, visiting, you know. Well, next time you come over, you must bring her. Do you hear? I'd love to meet her. I will, I say, I will. Becca is much calmer now as I tell her how I defied orders and ran back to Bobby. "You fool," she says. "You could have ended up the same way as poor Bobby." "I had to get the letter," I explain. "Is what he would have wanted. He thought so much of you." I take the letter out of my pocket, slide it across the table towards her. "Sorry it took me so long to bring it to you. It was just so painful, you know. After the war, I mean. I wasn't thinking straight. I put it in an old suitcase and I just forgot, I suppose. I'm sorry." She smiles. "Read it to me, Hobart. Read it to me like Bobby read it to you." Oh, I look at her. She looks longingly at me. "Are you sure?" I say. "It's for you, from Bobby." "I know," she says. "Read it to me." I open the letter, take a deep breath. There's already a tear running down Becca's cheek. July the 2nd, 1916. My dearest Rebecca, every moment I live through this madness, I keep you in my thoughts. Memories of your warm skin and soft hair comfort me as I march and as the battle gets closer. I promise I will make it home and hold our little boy in my arms and kiss your gentle lips again. I love you more than any war can stand in the way of, and soon we will be in one another's arms for the rest of our lives. I love you, Rebecca. Give Robert a kiss for me. Bobby. I hand her the letter. She reads it to herself, then pops it into the pocket of her apron and blows her nose into a white cotton hanky. "What happened to you?" she asks. "After the battle, you know." "That was my last battle," I say. "I was shelled the same afternoon and ended up in a German prisoner of war for the next 2.5 years. "Oh, you poor dab," she says. "Listen," I say. "There's something else. When I got back after the war, I went to live with a lady called Mrs. Cooper for a few years. I was suffering with a bit of shell shock. Lovely lady she was. Only died about 6 years ago. Anyway, a couple of years ago, I lived in the house again for a bit with my brother, Claude." "Your brother?" says Becca. "I didn't know you had a brother, Hobart. Younger than you?" "No, older," I say. "Half-brother. Long story, Becca. I'll tell you again. Anyway, I was flicking through an old sketchbook I'd had with me during the war, and I found another letter." "From Bobby?" she asks, hopefully. "No," I reply. "It's from me, it is. I wrote to you after I got back, but I never sent it." "Oh, well, let's see it in Hobart," she says. "It's not so much the letter that's interesting, but there's a poem in there. A song, really, that Bobby wrote. He used to sing it while we were marching." I slide the second letter across the table. It's in better condition than the first. Hasn't been pawed so much. Becca reads in silence. "Dear Rebecca, I imagine you'll have had the awful letter that tells you of your brave husband. There is nothing that I can say that can bring him back. I promised him I would write to you if he didn't make it back. He loved you so much. I enclose a letter and a poem he wrote for you. He sang it to me once. and we both cried. Please excuse me if it offends or upsets you, but I pray that in time you may find some comforts in his words. He was my best friend. Yours sincerely, Hobart Ackerman. To Beca. I'm cold and wet and hate it here. All around I smell the fear of grown men's tears in the mud, mixing with the stench of blood. The screams and shouts of love to mum, the dying men whose time has come to meet their God, my God too. But he will spare me love for you. Our little cottage, our wooden door will keep love safe after this war. This is my dream, my sweetheart dear, to help your worries disappear. If I'm alive at 25, I know our love will still survive. We'll have our girl with her mother's eyes, our handsome son so strong and wise. When I am home, it will all be well, when I am free from this living hell. Oh, that's lovely, she says. You are a lovely man, thank you. And she kisses me on the head. I hope Robert will be okay, I say as I leave. Oh, he'll calm down, the spoilt little so-and-so, she answers. Needs to learn some blooming manners and get his head out of those stupid books long enough to find himself a wife, she laughs. And bring Maggie next time you come, she shouts as I walk down towards the Vivian. I will, I reply. She'd love to meet you. I have a couple of quick ones in the Viv and head off back towards the railway station. I feel released, unburdened, a weight has been lifted from my shoulders. I stroll through the uplands, past the vetch field and back towards the town. I sing Bobby's song to myself.
If I'm alive at 25, I know our love will still survive. We'll have a daughter with her mommy's eyes, a handsome son so strong and wise. When I am home, all will be well. When I am out of this land.